Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Insomnia by Anima Mundi.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
But before I get this video started, I wanted to address something completely different that doesn't have anything to do with today's album. So you know how there's like the constant people who watch my videos? Well, you probably know because you're watching this video right now, but there's always this pretty constant amount of people watching my videos and also a pretty constant amount of people commenting. But the thing is, I'd like to get to know the people that watch my videos that don't usually comment. So if you're one of those people who enjoy this content and has opinions and stuff that they think about the albums, I'd really love to hear from you down in the comments, so hopefully we'll see new faces down there. Anyway, I just wanted to rant about this one. Here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So I listened to this album yesterday, and today when I made this video I suddenly realized I made one very odd mistake, and I actually called this band in most of where I wrote their name Anima Mundi. Now that's not the way that it's supposed to be, so I tried changing it everywhere, but hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. But there's one thing that's very special about today's band, and that's their global location. These guys are from the distant lands of Cuba, and I think the furthest we've had so far is Brazil, and of course Cuba is, closer to, well, I guess Europe, if that's like the place, the origin place of prog. But honestly, we don't really get to see a lot of acts from other regions of the world, and that kind of makes me wonder, what countries did we already see on the list? So we of course had the UK, but then suddenly we went on to the Czech Republic, and then to Sweden, to the USA, to Germany, Norway, Greece, Japan, which is also pretty remote to be honest, and then we had the twins, Australia and Austria, and France and Italy of course, and the Netherlands, Israel, Spain. We also had a bit of maple syrup on the way, Poland, Estonia, Denmark, Brazil, and today we have Cuba. And that's actually not that bad. I counted 21 countries, and seeing as tomorrow we're gonna listen to some Finnish music, I'm really excited to turn that number into 22. And of course the reason I'm excited to get to know bands from different regions of the world is not because it's just exotic by name, but because it seems like every single band interjects some of their own traditional music into their progressive sound. And that's something that I really like, and I think the most influential way that I actually heard it was with Bacamarchi's The Poids du Film, which was a definitively very interesting album that only a band like Bacamarchi could have made due to their Brazilian influences. Now don't get me wrong, this album wasn't made like during the Cold War Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 60s. No, this album was actually made in 2018, and it's the last release by this band. Now don't think that these guys are new on the block, they've actually been active since 1996. But despite existing for quite a long time now, they actually have a pretty short discography to their name, consisting of only 6 separate albums. Now I don't wish to fool you all, so I'll say this right now, I kinda really didn't enjoy this album. I suffered through a lot of parts of it, and that wasn't really nice, and seeing that the Prog Archives actually categorizes this one as being symphonic prog, which is overall my favorite subgenre of prog, I really couldn't believe it. So maybe their latest works were symphonic in their essence, but this one definitely felt like something different. If I had to say, I'd say that it's some sort of neo-prog, but in all honesty, I really don't know how to classify this one. There's just something inherently contemporary about it, but at the same time, it is definitely progressive. Now, unfortunately, the music on Insomnia is at best disinteresting, usually sounding like a very uneventful background music. Now, don't get me wrong with elevator music, it's not all that that repetitive, it's just something that I really wouldn't see myself ever again just putting on purpose. Songs like Nine Swans or New Tribe's Totem, which is a very long track, were definitely sufferable to go through, and I kind of really didn't like them. But the funny thing is about this album, there's actually one track on this album which is a whole lot better than anything found on here, at least in my personal opinion. If you already know this album, you might be able to guess which one I'm talking about, but for those of you who don't know, my favorite is The Hunter. This track in particular is very much intriguing and very ominous in its essence. I listened to it a few times now and I actually grew to like it even more and more as I listened to it, unlike the rest of this album, and I think that the deal breaker with this one has to be the flute solo at the end. And yes, the flute is an instrument that comes time and time again in this album, and usually I really like it, but on this album it kind of didn't really move me all that much, except for this song in particular. But yeah, all in all, I really can't tell you what I think about this album. I can't really say how would I classify it, and I don't really find anything interesting about it, and it's just an album that was and then went away, but unfortunately I kind of did suffer through a bit of parts from it, so it's not a mediocre album. Well, it technically is, because like there's one really good song, but then there's like a few really bad songs, so it kind of evens out, but it's definitely not an album that I enjoyed listening to. And you know, it's funny, I listened to this one yesterday, I gave it like a couple of listens here and there today, and I already forgot what it sounded like. And yeah, I guess that's the issue with doing this on a daily basis. You just listen to something, most of the time you listen to it once, if you're lucky I listen to it like more than once, but it's definitely something that even the better albums on this list usually remain forgotten. So this cover is an interesting little cover that looks to me like it has inverted colors on it, but the thing is, usually when you invert flesh tone colors, they usually turn out to be something more like cyan, but as you can see, this cover is red. Now that seemed peculiar to me, but then I looked at the rest of the discography by Anima Mundi and I actually saw their previous album called I Me Myself, and that cover also features a hand with inverted colors, but those ones are actually cyan as you'd expect them to be, and this means that these two albums have some sort of relationship between them, at least that's what I can gather. And this just makes me wonder, am I missing something? Maybe this album today just isn't complete without knowing the album that came before it, and we've seen this time and time again, like Haken's Virus and Vector, or Big Big Train's Common Ground and Welcome to the Planet. And speaking about those two albums by Big Big Train, the covers for those and the cover for these albums today, they're quite similar. They have like the hand motif on them and they have very bright lighting on them. I don't know if anyone was trying to do something like the other, but there's definitely some points of resemblance over there. But honestly, I am not too impressed by today's cover. It really doesn't have a lot to it, much like the music found on this album, and I think they should have stuck with covers like those they've made in the past, which have a very interesting design to them and the very cool band logo. But yeah, when it comes to the rating of this one, as I told you, there are some parts of this one which I really didn't like, which I had to suffer through, and there's the one song which is really nice, and there's like a few mediocre songs on here, and somehow at the end of the day, it all comes down to a rating of 5 out of 10. I just sometimes feel like I'm too generous. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're gonna be listening to Matka Mielen Yeremin by Saima. I really have no idea what I just said, but I already listened to that album. It's a Finnish album and it's very good, very interesting, and it has a lot of these really odd titles for songs, so I'm gonna have a very fun time tomorrow trying to say all of that. But of course I want to thank my lovely supporter over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Walnum, you are the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.